Hey, Geoff Lewis here from Seriously Series, and welcome to another camp cooking video. And here today we're going to do a bit of an old favourite, beef stew. And this is a fantastic traditional meal or dish that you can do next time you're out bush. And I'm going to share with you along the way how you can make your veggies and your other, I guess, food that you're taking with you last a little bit longer, but it isn't going to hurt the bank balance either. So if this sounds like a video that's of interest to you, then as always you know what to do. Click on that subscribe button down below, click on that notification button too, but most importantly, stay tuned. Okay, little bit of fruit juice. Anyway, it's nice to have a bit of fruit juice when you're cooking a stew. Now, we have been on the road for 8 days, and I mean Murray, who's doing a great job behind the camera, Nathan here, who will just float in and out of shot throughout of this. So anyway, we'll keep you on your toes. So the one thing that I like to do before we head out bush is to get a good cut of meat, and rump steak is a particular cut that you can pretty much do just about anything with. By getting a cut of meat as opposed to diced meat or even mince and diced beef won't last that long because it's aerated, there's air in the actual meat itself or in the actual packaging, and that's what causes it to break down and go off. Now, I've pulled out the frozen rump steak. I've already cut it up. We've got a few veggies here. Bit of pumpkin, bit of sweet potato, and a bit of onion. Can't go wrong with that. And one of the other thing about stews is you can get rid of all those veggies that are starting to get a bit festy and on the nose, particularly carrots like this one here. But I've got this magic device called a peeler. And if I peel that off, the carrot might be a bit rubbery, but hey, we're putting it in a stew, we're not putting it in a salad, so it's going to be okay. So we're going to chuck a few carrots in. We'll put them in a little bit later on. And we're going to chuck in another great veggie that is awesome to take out bush too, and that is actually sweet corn or corn. And you don't get the stuff in the packaging. Never do that. Get the stuff that's actually in the husk. Not only can you cook it in the ash of the fire, which I've showed in a previous video, but it actually keeps much better. Now, all my veggies I actually keep in a Hessian sack, which this time of year, which is winter, they're fine. In summer, I wet the Hessian sack, it'll evaporate, keep it in a cool dark spot, and it'll keep your veggies for weeks on end. And most importantly, you're not taking up fridge space for those other vital supplies. Whether they're fermented or distilled is entirely up to you. Now, the first thing we need to do, and I have been busy, shock horror, is we need to prepare our beef. Now, I've diced up the rump steak because I don't need to show you how to do that because you know what you're doing. But what I do need is a little bit of flour, and we really should get these guys on as a sponsor. Wallabies Baking Flour once more. Australian made for Australian conditions. The packaging even comes with recipes on it, how to make damper, scones, pancakes, pretty much everything. Now I've got my measuring cup here and my glasses on too. So we'll get about half a pannikin of flour, chuck it in. Doesn't matter if you put too much because it's just going to be left over anyway. And what we want to do is just toss the beef in some flour, but we're also going to put a little bit of cracked pepper. Now you should always have cracked pepper with you when you go out bush, same as eggs, because why is that, kids? It's very simple. If your radiator fails, chuck a bit of cracked pepper in it and it'll actually plug the leak. So always take cracked pepper with you. So we've got this here. I'm going to use a wooden spoon to do it because we're out bush and my hands are looking pretty average at the moment, and we don't want to catch any more than we've already got. So I'm just going to stir that round. The meat will stick to the actual flour, and the reason why we're doing this is we'll very quickly sear the beef or cook the beef, just the outside of it. Oh, that one escaped. And the flour itself will then go into the water that we add into the actual stew and help to actually thicken it up a little bit. So that's looking not too bad. We'll put a bit more flour in it. There we are. There we are. That is all tossed and ready to go. Now we need to go over to the Thermomix, which is just over that way. So let's head over there and I'll show you what we need to do with the beef to get it right for the next step. So here we are at the U-Butte Thermomix, or the campfire. Bit of tongue in cheek, can't hurt. Now I've put a bit of olive oil in there, but vegetable oil, castor oil, butter will do. It's a very, very forgiving dish what we're doing here. So anyway, I've got my mixing bowl, I've got my heavy duty wooden spoon, and I'm just going to toss that straight in there like so. A bit of extra flour in there for good measure. And when you do a stew, this fire's been going all day, it's really best to do it on a tripod because you can actually raise it and lower it to regulate the heat. And the great thing about doing a stew is you can do it all in the same pot or camp oven. Now my hands aren't tough, not by any means. I've been told I've got soft hands, but by using a tripod, oops, we lost a bit there, I can actually get it so I've got plenty of heat at the bottom and the handles are just a little bit warm to actually touch, so I'm never going to burn myself. You can get away without welding gloves, people. So we'll just keep tossing that round for a bit. I'll let that settle. Might lower it down a notch or two. And we'll just give that 5 or 10 minutes on that heat, and then we'll come over and we'll make the broth, and I'll show you what we need to do there. So we've seared the steak in the camp oven over the campfire, and now really all we need to do is add a little bit of water, and this will become our broth. All the juices, the flavour and all the rest has exuded out of the actual beef itself. And by putting the water in, we somewhat dilute it. Now, you can add bacon bones to it. You can also add a bit of stock if you like, but I think keeping it all natural is the best way to go. So we're going to put that on. The fire's died down a little bit, so we'll lower the tripod chain a bit. It's a bit too low. I'll get Nathan to come over and build the fire up at some point. He's on fire duties today. Just mix that round a little bit. And what we want to do is get that to a heat where it's pretty much just simmering. And we want to leave that with the rump steak in there, because it's not stewing steak. We can leave it in there for about an hour or so, and that'll help the steak to become nice and tender, a little bit easier to chew and enjoy. And after an hour we'll put in our veggies. If we put the veggies in now, they're going to be really soft, really mushy and not that pleasant. You want a little bit of texture, a bit of a crunch. So we'll put the veggies in an hour's time, put them in for about another hour or two, and then we should be good to enjoy some good beef stew. Anyway, as I said, we'll will get this fire going a little bit better. Sadly, at this point in the video, we were experiencing some audio difficulties. But basically what I'm trying to explain to you here is after an hour or so, you can add the vegetables to the camp oven, and you'll find that you probably need to add just a little bit of extra water. Now, the steak would have broken down at this stage, becoming nice and soft. The flour would have helped to obviously thicken the broth. And I always like to put in just a cheeky tin of peas and also a couple small tins of tomato paste just to give it a little bit more flavour and texture. Put this on the fire for about an hour, 40 minutes or so, depending on how chunky the veggies have been cut up. And voila, you've got beef stew. Now, this was enjoyed round the campfire later that evening, and you can tell by at least the expressions on the Nathan and Murray's face that it was somewhat enjoyed. And this is definitely a meal that's easy to do and one that can certainly boost morale on your next big adventure. So apologies for the audio, but hopefully you've enjoyed this video. And if you do want to see more camp cooking videos like this, adventures and more, then please do support Seriously Series by clicking on the subscribe button down below. Click on that notification button too, give us a thumbs up, but do support Seriously Series on Patreon. It makes a big difference. Anyway, we'll catch you in our next video. See you then.